Today I'm sharing how I used an older SheetLoad of card sketch to make 8 quick shabby chic style cards. Hey, it's Beth. Welcome. It is time for the February SheetLoad Rewind. So this month we are rewinding back to February of 2024. And this particular SheetLoad of cards was a 6x6 paper edition. However, I am going to be using 12x12. And I am still working on this love story collection. I'm not making Valentine's. I am going to be making some shabby chic cards. And I know I've used this a couple times already and we'll be using it again for the March SheetLoad. But my goal is to take each set of these cards and kind of combine them together and make some like a shabby chic card sets. So that's my plan. There is a playlist linked in the description box below for all of the Rewind team members that are playing along this month, so be sure to check out that link. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get creating, and I can talk a little bit more about the Rewind as I craft. The SheetLoad did call for 4 6x6 sheets of pattern paper. Like I mentioned, I am going to be using one 12x12 sheet, and it is double-sided. So what I'm going to do is cut it down to 2 6x12 strips, and then that will allow me to cut all the pieces I need, you know, like as if I were cutting 2 of the same 6x6 patterns. While I am cutting this down, if you are new to SheetLoad of cards, it is a PDF that Call Me Crafty Owl puts out every single month, which is amazing. And it contains a card sketch, the cut list, supply list, everything you need that helps you make a certain amount of cards. And it is free to subscribers of her channel, which is awesome as well. However, after 2 years, I believe it is, the SheetLoad sketches go into what's called the vault. And that means that they're not like readily accessible anymore. And if you are looking for older SheetLoads, one way you can do that is to become a member of her channel. That is one of the membership perks. And then each month there's a group of us that brings out a SheetLoad from the past, so essentially bringing it out of the vault for a short amount of time, and we create cards with it, kind of share our projects and all that. And if it's one you don't have, that is a good time to snag it, because after a certain amount of time it does go back into the vault. So we are using February 2024 today, like I said, and so it, I believe, should be going into the vault after, you know, after this. So if you don't already have it, snag it while you can. Well, I did want to show you how I cut down the pattern paper, since I was doing it a little bit differently using a different size. I did cut down the cardstock matting layers exactly as the cutting guide shared or told you to, and use the same size cardstock that Alicia recommended. I did end up adding an extra like full card mat. The rose paper here, it's kind of like a not bright white, it's kind of just off white a little bit, and I did want to, I'm using white card bases. I didn't have any like heavy duty cardstock that wasn't bright white, so I have a kind of iridescent, or not iridescent, shimmery, just off white cardstock that I'm going to be bringing in, and it had a little damage around the edges, so I wasn't able to cover the full card base, but I cut it down to like 5 1/8 or 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, so there's just a little bit of the white edge showing, so it does kind of tone it down a little. I chose to go with green for my matting cardstock just because it was a nice contrast, and it brought out, there's the green and the rose leaves from the roses that's in the floral pattern there. And I pretty much always assemble my cards like assembly line style, so I'm kind of showing you with the first two how I would do it, and then I would normally continue on the rest of the way through the other 6 cards with that. So I'm doing 2 cards with you on camera today and the other 6 off camera. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and take my kind of just off-white piece of cardstock and go ahead and add that to my card base, and then can start layering the other elements on top of that. We'll go ahead and put this middle piece down, and then instead of a half circle, I decided to bring in a doily since I am kind of going shabby chic style on these. I had some doilies that were like just the right size, so I will be using those in place of the half circle. I'm also going to be bringing in a little rose element that I found online and printed out 8 of, and then did some fussy cutting. And then my sentiment, I'm going to kind of overlap on the doily with the roses. So, you know, changing it up a little bit as to how I'm using that area there where the half circle would go, but still it has pretty much the same look as the original sketch. And, you know, Alicia will tell you too that sheet loads are a good jumping off point. You can make them yours. It's, you know, she gives you a great place to start, a great design, and sometimes the more you make them, the, you know, it changes every time you make them. So here are those little rose. They're like a pink triple rose piece that I'm going to use as an embellishment. I'll put those down, and then I did stamp thinking of you onto, so I found some kind of not or just off-white cardstock scraps that I could use to stamp a tiny thinking of you. And so I'm going to, and I used the scraps that I had left over of the green cardstock as my matting piece for there, so it kind of helps the sentiment pop a little bit. So that's one way, you know, I'm using up some of the cardstock scraps. I will also be adding some to the inside of the card just to add a little bit of color on the inside, and so that cut down on the scraps of the matting cardstock that I had left over as well. And I'm always, anytime I can avoid having scraps left, I am all for that. I will layer up my sentiments here and then kind of overlap them on the roses so that you can still see that they are roses. And then the sentiment will kind of hang off the right side a little bit. Realized I wanted to make sure I had my placement right before I truly started gluing things down to the card. So these, I had mentioned before that I'm going to kind of try to create a card set. So my hope is that making 3 or 4 different sheet load sketches, I'll have 3 or 4 different card styles, as well as sentiments. I'm using a different type of sentiment for each sheet load group that I'm making. So I'll kind of create an assorted like mix of shabby chic cards that I can offer for sale in our at our shows and in our online shop. So here I am putting, on one card I used a scrap of pattern paper, on the other one I used a scrap of the green cardstock, and I do that throughout. So I have finished all 8 cards, and did want to show you, I did end up adding a little pink heart that I punched out of some other pattern paper left, just because I felt like I needed a little more balance. But other than that, this was another fun sheet load. Please be sure to check out the links in the description box below. Thank you all so much for your time, and hope you all have a very crafty day.